Let's go out to the City of Champions now. Jason Strudwick joins us, longtime NHLer from TSN 1260 Edmonton. How you doing, Struds?
Good. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Lots to get to with you, my friend. Obviously, we're going to go to the NHL playoff format idea, but first, the CFL, what you heard yesterday, are you following much of that with the staunch Rider fan that you are?
Oh, yeah. Well, as a big Rider fan, I was pretty excited about the Grey Cup being there. I thought that maybe coming down. Maybe wouldn't make it to the game, but I definitely tried to make it to some of the post or pre-game activities. So it's disappointing. I'm a CFL fan. I like, Canadiana. CFL is very Canadian. For the athletes, I think it's really tough for them. Obviously there's the idea of whether it be how hard should I train now? What does my paycheck look like? Where should I live? Where should I go? So there's a lot of questions, and they're just one of many employees that are around the world that are suffering the same kind of indecision. It's pretty hard for them to figure out what to do.
Do you have any thoughts on if the CFL should get federal aid and American players? Has that even come up on you guys' radar up there, given how hockey central you are?
Yeah, there's some discussion, and it's a pretty big topic. I played in the United States. I was paid by Americans, but I also paid taxes there. I also rented an apartment there. I spent some of the money I made there. So I did bring some of it back to Canada and stuff it inside my mattress, but I did spend money there. So when these American athletes, whether it's hockey or football or basketball or baseball, come here, yeah, they are paying the money that's paid by our fans here in Canada, but they also do put some of that money back into the system and spend some of that money. So, should they get government money? I'm not a really political guy, but I feel that I know as a foreign import player, I did spend the money I was paid for, or paid with, in some of the communities I played in.
Of course, as a taxpayer, for sure. So John Ohm in Winnipeg writes in, he says, how does Jason become a huge Rider fan being born and raised in Edmonton?
Yeah, well, both my parents are from Saskatchewan, and my grandma and grandpa is from just outside of Regina and Fort CFL. So many times we come to games there, and I drive. I remember one we went to Taylor Field, and it was raining, like pouring rain. And I was with my cousin, Rob Niedermeyer, and my grandma and grandpa, and Rob was the golden boy. Well, actually, Scott Niedermeyer was the golden boy, then Rob, and then all the rest of us cousins. And my grandpa made me sit on the outside where the rain was slamming into me, and then it was my cousin Rob, then my grandpa, and then my grandma. Everyone was dry except for me. So they wanted to save the whole game. I was frozen. But, as long as Rob was okay and Grandma was okay, Grandpa didn't care.
There's your answer, John. Honestly, the question that's burning the most for me is the food court draft. I think you fared well, the TSN 1260 food court draft last week. We've been talking about it here, by the way, the whole thing. Who was your first round pick? What's the restaurant you'd want first in your food court?
Well, you got to keep in mind, I'm a huge fan of ice. So Dairy Queen is my number one. I love a good blizzard with Smarties. So that would be wrapping up my meal. Then oftentimes I go to food court with my own kids before a movie. I love to have chicken fingers. I love the buffalo chicken fingers. So that's kind of my meal. Buffalo chicken fingers. I wrap it up with the blizzard, and then we go to the movie and watch the movie with Colonel's popcorn. I got to feel that. I don't feel it. I buy it, then I got to smuggle it into the movie theater. So those are two of my big top first pick DQ. I think Colonel's is like top fourth or fifth round.
Fan food, not fast food. I totally get it. But how many food courts do you see actually have a Dairy Queen in them? That when I saw your list, I'm like, Dairy Queen? I love Dairy Queen too, but I don't see too many malls that have Dairy Queen in a food court. Do you?
Well, the one I go to, West Hampton Mall, in Phase 3, and that's the one I always go to. And I've been going to that food court since I was 14 or 15. I used to get a Chinese buffet there when I was in high school. So I know food courts. I know arcades, food courts, Dairy Queen, and Chinese buffet.
When you talk about West Edmonton food court, of course, it's the cornucopia of food courts. Anyways, moving on to the NHL. How much are you keeping in touch with the current players? Where are they at mentally, physically, and do you think that they're going to get on the ice here?
I do think they're going to get on the ice. I really do. I think that so much work's being put into it that I can't see it not happening. Now, obviously, that's assuming everything in the world seems to be at least coming down here in North America, specifically, Alberta, the hub city. But I think about the players, and my big thing is that I don't think I could worry about are we or are we not going to play. I think it's such a big discussion and thing to figure out for a player that has some information who's not a health expert. And I'll go back to my time with the lockout of 0405. I had probably more information than most players have now about the COVID situation. But I just said I can't look 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the road. All I can worry about is having a good workout today, so that if they start hockey during the lockout, let's say they start in a month, I would be ready. So for the players today, a couple of them did talk to you. They're trying to have the idea of what do I need to do today to be ready if we start in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, six, whatever the number is. Otherwise, it's just too big, because if you go back 8 weeks and think, oh my God, we might have a season starting July 15th or August 15th. I'm stuck in an apartment. I don't have access to gyms. How am I going to do all these things? Just worry about one day at a time. And these NHL teams have fantastic trainers. They'll be able to give them a lot of insight over what to do during that time. And now there's a little more freedom. Maybe they can go run outside or run stairs or have access to a friend's gym. Whatever it is, they're going to be able to figure it out. But I would just take a day at a time. Trying to predict what's going to happen in the future, I think it just wrecks your mind. So spend time with your family. Make sure you're physically ready, so when you can start skating and that training goes to a higher level, you'll be ready to go.
Man, tremendous advice. I hope that a lot of players are listening to you. I wear a bracelet every day that says one day at a time. It actually works. So another viewer writes in and he says, what's your favorite Neil Diamond song since you have a Neil Diamond shirt on? I can just imagine what it is.
I love Neil Diamond. I'm a huge fan of Neil. And I saw one of his last concerts. I saw it here in Edmonton. And, I think Forever in Blue is probably my favorite one, or Song Sung Blue. And I have a playlist on my phone. It's called The Diamond Cutter. And it's just 10 songs of only Neil Diamond. I'll go for runs, bike rides, and that's my playlist. I'm pretty cool for 1970. I might not be super cool for 2020.
Sweet Caroline is the anti-COVID-19 coronavirus song. Touching me, touching you. You can't touch anybody, right? That was the first thing that came to my mind. I'm like, it can't be Sweet Caroline. People writing in saying, of course, there's a lot of Dairy Queens. It's the DQ/Orange Julius combo. My bad. I'm sorry. When I go to a food court, I go to a place that I can't find anywhere else, usually. Anyways, I know people really get excited about that, by the way. And I guess also, if they do get back onto the ice, how do you think the Oilers will fare?
I actually know the answer to this. Anything that's happened in the first, whatever it is, let's call it 2/3 of the NHL season, I don't think you can predict or carry that forward to this last third or playoff, whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever percentage. I would treat them as two separate seasons. So, for instance, James Neal Damson had a great start to the season, scoring goals on the power play. He was really doing well, but he slowed down a bit. Can I predict based on the last little way he kind of finished that he won't score goals in any resumption of the season? No, I have no idea, because there's been so much time passed. For many guys, they really haven't done anything or been unable to do anything, stay in shape or to shoot or whatever you want to call it. It's going to be two completely different seasons. So, Oilers fans, a guy like Yamamoto, you'll get a good chance, I think, to see how he looks in two separate situations. The year that he had was doing so well when he got called up by the Oilers, and now what I would call almost a new second season within this NHL season of 19 and 2020. Same with Ethan Bear. Great start to the season, but there's no guarantee that he'll be the same player or better or worse going in. There's no idea. So can you predict the Oilers' power play will be good? Yeah. I think anyone can see that. But individual players that don't have a long track record, you have no idea how they're going to go kind of from this half to that year. So I think it's going to be a complete wild card. Teams getting players back. Healthy, look in the NBA, like did Durant come back to the Nets? In the NHL, having different guys coming back, Carey Price rested, all this crazy stuff that you don't know what's going to happen. So it's going to be so much fun to break it down. And unfortunately, that momentum for teams that are really going well and or peaking going into what would have been a playoff run, what's going on right now, I don't think that's going to carry forward.
Yeah. And they got the best coach, let's not forget, too. By the way, before we let you go, Struds, producer Clark says I should ask you about Reed Lowe, who's coming on later on in the program. Look at his face.
Into a sweat. I got to say that I got into a few fights in my day, and Reed Lowe really surprised me. I didn't expect him to fight like that. And I wouldn't say he beat me up, but he absolutely tossed me around. And when you're in a fight, and eventually at some point, if you kind of get a hold of something, and then you kind of calm it down. but he was one step ahead of me. Every time I go to grab his right hand or his left hand, he punched me with his right. And I was just constantly, he was switching. I think at one point he pulled a third arm out of his somewhere, and he was maybe kicking me as well. Like, I couldn't get going. And I remember I was so frustrated after the fight, and my nose it wasn't broken, but it was swollen. And I went into the dressing room. I was just snapping. And Donald Brashear brings me in. He's like, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm pissed off. I lost the fight." He's like, "It's going to happen. Like, don't show the other guys on your team that you're upset that you got hurt." He goes, "If you're upset, how do you think they feel? The guys that are scared." And so after that, I never kind of showed, whether I won or lost, I never showed any emotion. And then a couple days later, Mark Crawford, he pulled me over well, and he said, "I could tell you're upset about the way that fight went." So he's, "Oh, I'm like, yeah, I was." He's like, "Well, the only people who never get black eyes," I'm like, "Who?" He's like, "The guys that never fight. I don't want you to ever see you get rattled again after a fight, whether you win or whether you lose." And that completely changed the way I approached fighting after that. Not as far as my technique, but the mental part. And actually, Reload giving me a good beating was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because it really kind of set my mental approach to the fighting into a better place. And so, in a weird way, I guess I'm thanking him. But my God, if you watch that fight, he was just beating me left and right. And I couldn't catch up to him. It was really good. So, we never did fight again. I guess I learned my lesson, and his hands are probably still sore.
He's coming up at 11:10. I'm going to ask him about it. So if you have an opportunity to watch Struds, I would suggest it. I invite you to. So I appreciate the time. You're a true gem, my friend. Stay safe. And here's hoping we're talking Stanley Cup playoffs soon.
No, I think it's going to happen. I think we're looking forward to it. So I won't be wearing my Neil Diamond shirt. I'll be wearing maybe an Oilers jersey.
Awesome. Thanks, Struds.
See you guys.
Jason Strudwick checking in from Edmonton. By the way, 674 games in the National Hockey League. Islanders, Canucks, Blackhawks, Rangers, and Oilers.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.